Maddy, can you give me a bit of a background on your journey so far? So talk to me about your career because you were originally in healthcare. Is that correct?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah.
That's correct. Yep. So, I still am in healthcare, but I also do. I work with basically energetics. So when I was with my experience in the healthcare industry, I was noticing how people would continue to show up with symptoms of something deeper, and wasn't always physical. The doctors, they'd prescribe pills. They would, we'd see therapists, but then they'd end up coming back. And so this kind of took my path into understanding what is happening at a deeper level, what's happening at an energetic level. And really, we can look at a lot of different situations, not just our physical health, but our mental health, our emotional health. What is the cause of a lot of our suffering in the world? And I know it's kind of a big question, but essentially now I do coaching and I work for a company called Masters of Self University. And I have my own coaching company where I do breath work. I don't know if have you heard of breath work before?
Yeah, I was doing a bit of reading, Maddy. It says you're a certified hypno breathwork facilitator and
Mhm.
mystical coach.
Yes,
Fascinating.
the school coach of oneness. Yep. Um, as far as what I feel like, because you focus on the kind of mental, emotional, physical health and like being kind of the like wellness, holistic wellness is what I've kind of gathered from your podcast and your listeners. Does that sound about right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Everything from health, wealth to entrepreneurship, personal development, martial arts,
Yeah. So
broad
it's just
spectrum of
just about
guests.
everybody. Yeah.
Everything. Yeah,
That's awesome.
yeah.
Yeah. So, what's really interesting, it's just basically what I do and what I do teaching and workshops and with the breath work and with the coaching is helping people understand what energetically, what kind of subconscious programs are keeping them stuck, are keeping them from really pursuing their dreams and wanting to maybe make it to the next point in their life. Because sometimes we feel like we're stuck or we're kind of in cycles and we don't know why. And it's if we just focus on the physical, we're missing 95% of what really is happening, what's really going on underneath the surface that's keeping us where we're at.
Yeah, and do you think that a lot of the mental health issues today is derived not just from early childhood, but I think we're living in a very fast-paced world. We are constantly bombarded with an influx of emails. People are lonely. People have forgotten how to connect. Uh,
Yeah.
we we have a rise in mental health in suicide in men.
Yeah.
What do you think is some of the core um, predicators of this?
Honestly, to get to the root of that, it's just our lack of education on how to process and feel our pain.
Mm,
And a lot of it is because we have those primal years, the childhood years, birth to seven, where we're trying to learn, we're trying to experience what this world is. And a lot of things happen that we perceive maybe not accurately. We might then perceive it as like a kind of a hit on us because we don't know how to rationalize things. Everything feels like it's our fault or everything feels like it's happening to us because we're trying to relate ourselves to the world. And so in those primal years, we're understanding who we are. And when negative things happen to us or we're experiencing some pain, if we don't know how to feel and process and love ourselves through our pain, and this is where we get into energetics, is like the energetics of what is happening within our body and how do we elevate out of that, then it will just get stored in our system. It'll get stored in our body and it'll keep happening, getting re-triggered over and over and over again until as we're become adults. So when you
mm.
talk about, loneliness and depression and all these things that we're seeing a lot more of, it's because we have all these unprocessed emotions, all this pain within our bodies that we are just conditioned to run away from. We're conditioned to bring out our phone or turn on the TV or go to the fridge, or sometimes we even use healthy things like going to the gym and going out with friends, being social as a way to cope instead of actually learning the energetic process of what healing actually is.
Yes. And how have you understood better with healing and trauma? What's your understanding there?
Yeah. So a lot of modern approaches to healing and like counseling, you see a lot of like talk therapy. You see a lot of behavior changing, like cognitive behavior changes. You see a lot of mindset shifts. And the thing about those things are like coping strategies is that we're taught that we cannot truly really heal ourselves. We're taught that we need to cope with how we are. We need to take the medication because that's just how we are. Or we're just an anxious person or we're a depressed person. We need to cope. We need to be able to do these things so we don't have to think about it. Or we need to convince ourselves out of our own pain. So when it comes to processing and healing your trauma, it's not about coping. It's about learning how to connect to your heart, how to love yourself through the pain that you're experiencing, see it, face it. As you do that, you are healing those frequencies. And I see that all these, you know, when I talk about energy, when I talk about frequencies in relation to emotions, um, we feel it in our bodies, but it's not something we can see. So a lot of times people kind of like, oh, we're talking about energies, like woo woo, but we can't see it, but we can feel it. And so we're trying to get deeper. What's actually happening? What is underneath the surface? What is the energy or the emotion that is driving your thoughts, your behaviors, your actions? So essentially trying to get to that root and go through the healing process from the root, from the frequency, from the energy, from the wound that is starting all these versus just addressing things from the surface. Because if you
Yes.
just address things from the surface, if you just change your behavior or your thoughts, you're not actually changing the frequency of how you're feeling. You're not changing the frequency of what's causing all of these things to happen in the first place.
Yeah. You also speak to Maddie about guiding people to heal deep in their subconscious. What are some of the common patterns or beliefs you see people carrying that hold them back?
Yeah. And I'm sure you see this too, even just like in all of your work with jujitsu. And do you coach um, people or do you just
Yeah,
practice yourself?
yeah, yeah. So I teach children and
Yeah.
adults. Yeah,
Cool.
and I
So let me
also
ask,
have yeah,
sorry, go ahead.
I've also worked with a lot of women. In particular, I had a student of mine who was a sexual assault survivor, very traumatic past. But what's amazing was I was able to transform her life and give her the tools and confidence, and it's just completely transformed her life.
That's amazing. And honestly, it's been on my bucket list to be able to take classes. And also, I have a 6-year-old that I want to get her into jujitsu. Like, I
You
would
would
love
love
to,
it,
like,
Maddie. Yeah,
yeah, I
you would love it.
just feels
Yep.
empowering, you know? It feels like, okay, I can do something. I don't have to depend on somebody, bigger or, a man. Yeah, it's very empowering. So, what I want to ask you is when you are working with these individuals, what do you feel like is keeping them like from maybe they're having a hard time or maybe they're struggling? When you feel into that, what do you feel like the deeper rooted issue is there?
I think it's self doubt,
Mm.
it's limited belief within oneself. And that's obviously programmed from childhood.
Yeah.
And I think people overestimate what they can do in a year and underestimate what they can do in 3 to 5 years. And I mean, a lot can happen within that time frame. So I think it's a limited belief. It's uncertainty, it's fear, it's doubt, it's apprehension, all these things mixed up into a concoction of emotional overload.
Mhm.
And I think that's what's really keeping people stuck. And especially too, I've experienced that as well.
Yeah, yeah, when you're trying to learn a skill like that too, and then you're just kind of fighting yourself and everybody's different, everybody has different beliefs that might hold them back. And what I try to do, because when we talk about mental health, when we talk about different beliefs, I feel like we hear that all the time. We hear like, oh, I have self-doubt, or I just don't feel like I'm good enough, or I'm just sabotaging myself. And we try to change it at that level. We try to just be like, okay, I just need to be more confident. I just need to be more, I just have to, you're almost like forcing something, but not addressing the root. It's like when we don't feel into the energy of something, then it's just words. If we tell somebody, okay, I have low self-worth. I don't think that I'm good enough. I'm not going to do well at this. When we just talk about it and we're not really feeling into the energy and showing up and opening our heart to the energy and changing that frequency, it will stay there. And I think that sometimes with like the mindset shift approach, it it takes away from the actual understanding and feeling of the energy. It's like, oh, I just need to change my thoughts. I just need to change how I think about myself. But if it was that easy, everybody would be healed, right? If I just need to think that I'm a great person and think that I'm, have all the skills and that I'm confident, like why do we keep running into the same issue over and over and over again? Like we feel good for maybe a day, but then the frequency of self-doubt is a thing. It is it's a, I don't want to say physical. It is an actual frequency. It's that we have created. And if we see it as something that's not us, that is just stored in our body, if we almost see it as like another entity, then we don't get lost in it. So we see, oh, I'm experiencing some self-doubt. It takes a lot of conscious awareness to see that it's not you. It's just a frequency that you're experiencing. And so sometimes when we start to feel this self-doubt, we become it. It becomes us. It's like I am the self-doubt because we are lost in it and we can't get out of it. But once you take a step back and start to observe it, then you start the detachment process, and then you're able to kind of go into that healing process, into elevating that frequency. And when you elevate that frequency, some of these wounds are multifaceted, like you said, there's layers and layers and layers, but you're chipping away at it. And then the next time you show up to be coached, show up to your class, you have a little more confidence, or you aren't doubting yourself as much because you're addressing the energy and not getting lost in the frequency, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what I've noticed too, Maddy, is children especially can be very negative towards themselves. And I see it in my schools. You know, I can't do this. I don't have the ability to do it. I'm not as skillful as such and such. And that sort of transfers into life. And then as adults, we become our own worst critics. Have you
Mm-hmm.
noticed that? You know, it can sometimes
Yeah.
start early in childhood. And you said you've got a 6-year-old daughter. What
Yeah.
are some of the core lessons and values and, you know, how are you going to instill these in your daughter?
It's hard. I mean, it takes a lot of work. It's not like you can tell them something once and they're gonna do it, or it's gonna hit, or
Mhm.
it's gonna sink in. Um, so we really practice. And I was just talking to my friend the other day about this, is how as parents we're trying to protect our children from feeling pain and feeling
Yep.
hurt because we don't want them to be traumatized, right? It's like we've all been through that. We don't want to have to go through that, or want them to have to go through that. And that's kind of how I approached it at first. I was like, oh, I like felt like so much control of like I need to make sure everything's perfect, that she never, gets her feelings hurt, never gets rejected. Um, but then as I've done the healing work on myself, I realized you can't control what other people are going to do. You can't control the fact that you are never going to experience pain ever again in your life. And so it's not about withholding and protecting them from pain. It's about teaching them how to feel and how to show up for themselves and how to
Mm.
process and love themselves through the pain that they're experiencing, because trauma doesn't happen from the pain. Trauma happens from storing the pain and not processing and feeling the pain. So
Wow.
you can have a traumatic experience as a kid, but if you knew how to process and feel it and allow it to flow and allow it to have a space to expand and to grow into, and if you brought love to it, you would elevate that frequency, you would elevate that emotion, and it wouldn't get stored in your body. But literally none of us know
Mm.
how to do that. None of us were taught that as kids. All we were taught is pain is negative, push it away, only focus on happy things. People are so uncomfortable with pain that they can't handle it, but really it's just a part of life. And when we're running away from it our whole life, then it just inhibits us from really moving through life in a very confident and connected and whole space.
Yeah. And what's the old saying, Maddie? Diamonds are built under pressure.
Mm, yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. And that's, yeah, so true. Just like it was another point I was talking to my friend about because she's like, oh, I just wish I didn't have all this trauma when I was younger. She's like, I feel like I'm moving through it and processing now, but it's just like a bummer that I had to go through that. And I'm like, you know, sometimes like we don't realize how powerful we are until we've gone through something challenging like that or something painful or something harmful. If your life was perfect and cushy all along, you would never be challenged to connect to your own internal power and become the stronger version of you. And I'm sure we can relate that to fighting too. If you're going to be fighting super easy people who don't really know what they're doing, you're never going to gain the skills, you're never going to get stronger. So
Mm.
it's a good, yeah, it's a good analogy.
Yeah. Joe Rogan says this too, Maddie. He says, be the hero of your own movie. So if your life was documented, you have directors and you pretend you have like a film crew behind you, film you every step of the way. It's that hero's journey. It's kind of why we are captivated and drawn to superhero movies. It's why
Mhm.
Batman's parents died and he became Batman.
Mhm.
And I look at children as well too, Maddie. We were talking just before about limited belief, and I think sometimes too parents can be a little bit too helicoptery. And
Mhm.
like for example, my niece and nephew, one of them was playing on the slide, and then it got to a point where they tried a different higher slide. It was a little bit higher, and they were a little bit scared, and they didn't know how to climb up there. And instead of actually wanting to pick them up and put them up there, I sort of guided them through it. But what do you think is sometimes some of the negative and deleterious habits that parents do that's setting their kids up to fail? What do you think are some of the things that parents can try and be mindful of? Because unfortunately, your parents aren't going to be there with you as you move in life.
Right. Yeah. So that's a really good point because when we experience what happens when we're younger and we experience kind of a negative parenting style that we don't like. Let's say your parents really rigid, they aren't there to support you emotionally. They're really distant. We either see one of two things is somebody then becomes that rigid parent and they do the same thing to their own kids and they're really distant because that's what they learned. Or you see the pendulum swing to the whole other side where they are like, I'm never going to be like my parents. I'm going to be loving and doting, and my kids are never going to ever question that I love them. And so you almost create this dynamic of a child who never learns how to be there for themselves. And so they're constantly dependent. It's almost like you're creating this powerlessness. You're creating
Mm,
this feeling that even though you're not telling them they're powerless, the energetic frequency that you're coming from is that of my child is too powerless without me. They need me. They need my everything, that they need my support. And I'm not saying you shouldn't support your kids at any and when they need it, but when you have parents that are doing everything for them and constantly needing to be there whenever they're going through something emotionally, um, the goal is to instead be the guide to guide them to do this on their own. Kind of like you're
yes.
saying, instead of just doing it for them, guiding them to connect to their heart, guiding them to see and feel what they're experiencing. Because sometimes when you are just overbearing, it can cause this like codependent relationship, this very enmeshed parenting style, and the child doesn't know how to thrive on their own. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's a trap that a lot of parents do fall into, hey, Maddie,
It is.
because Yeah, I mean, I'm not a father yet, but I know when I do have kids, you want to be a little bit helicoptery because they're part of you. You know, you love them. You know,
Uh,
you want to keep them safe. That's just primal. That's in our instinct. But unfortunately, it has a bit of a deleterious effect, doesn't it? You're setting them up for to fail in life. You know,
right,
you're not teaching them to be
absolutely.
independent.
Absolutely. And I think that's the hard part is that a lot of parents think that they're doing the right thing. Like I'm helping them, I'm showing them, I'm making sure they feel loved all the time, but when we talk about energy, we need to feel into the energy of where that's coming from. And the parent, because they were traumatized as a child for not getting their needs met, they then need to compensate behaviorally. I'm just going to change how I was parented. I'm going to change my behavior and do it differently, but it's coming from this place of I can't let my child fail. I can't let my child feel this way. And so when they haven't done the work on themselves to actually truly authentically heal, they are just passing down the same trauma in a different form. It's two sides of the same coin, the enmeshed parenting style and then the rigid disconnected parenting style. It's the same trauma but different, like a different way of expressing it.
Yes. And Maddie, as someone like yourself that continues to do the inner work, how has your personal journey shaped your ability to guide others through their own transformations?
Oh yeah, I mean that's a big question. Um, if you're if you are seeing a counselor or a therapist and they're not doing their own work on themselves, then you need to find a different therapist or counselor because you can only be helped to the extent that someone has helped themselves. I can only guide my clients to the extent that I've guided myself. Otherwise, I'm just in my head, remembering a bunch of things, spitting a bunch of things out. When I work with energetics, I need to be able to clear out a lot of my own wounding because if I don't, then I'm just going to be projecting my own wounding onto my clients and I'm going to be um, kind of filtering their experience through mine. And so being able to heal and elevate myself helps me see so much clearer what they're going through and guiding them to see and heal themselves in that way. So every year, I feel like as I'm doing the work on myself, I become a much better coach. And I
Yeah.
see more things and I feel more things and able to help people see things on a deeper level. It's pretty powerful stuff. And just seeing how it's just integrated into my life and the changes that have happened in my relationships. Really, I feel like the necessity is going inward and healing yourself because that helps literally every facet of your life this in this existence.
Yeah. And what sparked your interest into trauma and healing, and especially in the subconscious mind and childhood? Can you talk a little bit about your own journey and how this led up to this very moment?
Yeah. So ever since I was little, I've always been kind of like the mediator. I've always the one that, wants everybody to be okay and be happy. And this kind of led into in college, I studied psychology. And I was just super curious about the human body and the mind and like why people did the things that they did and why they thought the way they thought. But there was something missing there. There was something missing. Like I wanted to be a therapist and I wanted to help people there, but what I was learning, I knew that it was almost felt like I was in a box. Like I couldn't quite address or see the things deeper than as deep as I wanted to. And so it wasn't until I heard my teacher on a podcast through Masters of Self University. I heard her talk about energetics and the deeper aspects of healing and what that looks like and how to transform the frequencies instead of just when we talk about like healing, we often think, okay, just got to feel it, just got to let it go, just got to breathe it out. But there's no transformation there. It's a lot of just like powerlessness. It's just pushing it away. It's just running away because we don't feel like we're powerful enough to heal ourselves. And so realizing that we don't need anybody or anything outside of us to heal us, that just connecting to our own internal power and showing up for ourselves in that way, that's all we need. And so
Yeah.
that was monumental, because we're raised in a society where you are conditioned to believe you are so powerless. You're conditioned to believe that you need this approach, or you need this pill, or you need this, this program that someone's doing, or you need to see your therapist every week, but you don't need anybody or anything outside of you. You just, it's just learning the process of how to show up and how to elevate those frequencies that are coming up, the emotions, how to process your pain.
Yeah.
How can someone heal their past trauma? So, with a lot of your clients and what you do with them, because if you think about the pharmaceutical business, right, that's an 80, or not 80, it's like a billion-dollar industry.
Yeah.
It's insane. Um, Antidepressants kind of only numb the pain. They
Yeah.
don't really fix the core problem. And you can do certain things, breath work, mindfulness, meditation, exercise especially has been proven, an 80% success rate to override any sort of antidepressant medication. But in terms of exercise, mental health, well-being, meditation, mindfulness, what are some of the things that you coach your clients through to heal their pain and trauma?
Yeah. That's another big question. So all those things that you listed, those things we would consider just tools. So they're
Mm,
just tools to help kind of support you on your path. Um, but when it comes to healing, we teach people how to connect to their own soul, which is something it's the truth of who you are. You are a soul living in a human body. And so this soul is the most conscious, high, I don't know if you call vibration, energetic frequency that you hold, is pure love, pure presence, pure consciousness. But we're so disconnected from it our whole lives, especially when we come here as humans, that we don't even know what it feels like to connect to that part of us. And so when it comes to healing, I talk a lot about energetic entrainment. So when you have two different frequencies, those two frequencies are going to want to become the same. So you have a low frequency and a high frequency. And so if they're in the same area, they're going to want to end up evening out and becoming the same. So that's called energetic entrainment. So when we're talking about healing energetically, we teach people to connect to their own soul, to connect to their own power internally. We have a process to help guide people through that. And when you stay connected to that part of you, while experiencing these low frequencies, while experiencing the pain, while bringing it up, these frequencies will entrain, and the higher frequency is going to be more powerful. So when you meet, and we hear this talked about, but not really like the science of it, like the energetics of it, of meeting things with love. It can be kind of sound pretty woo woo and pretty like, oh, just gotta, love heals it, everything, and love heals all. But we teach the energetic process of why that is. Why does love heal things? Why is it that when you give someone a hug and you just let them cry, it's healing? Why is
Mm,
it that when you bring love to something, um, it's slowly subsides, and it's because they're two separate energies, and the energies are wanting to become the same, and the higher frequency is going to win every single time. So we connect people to that part of themselves, and then allow them to see, process, and heal. And I mean, this is me trying to explain it in like 2 minutes, but it's something that takes six
mm,
months, with our coaching program. We have online, it's an online university. So our first 3 months we go through the coaching program, and then we have a lot of other metaphysical, educational, energetic classes as well. But it's a lot. So that's just like a
yeah.
very simple Cliff Notes version, but it's very, very different than a lot of the mainstream approaches to healing. it is the most efficient and effective that I have found out there, and
Yeah.
it feels that like the truth of it resonated so much with me, and that's why I was like, I need to learn this, I need to do this, and it's completely changed my life.
Yeah.
There's a gender war going on right now, Maddy. We have both men and women who are very combative towards one another. We have an epidemic of loneliness and sexlessness amongst the sexes in our 4 million year history. I think there is a war going on. Men are being shamed for their masculinity. Women are confused about, as they step into the workforce, but then also juggling the fact that they maybe want to have kids one day. Women especially are doing fantastic in the workforce. They're outpacing men both in education and employment. And I think by 2030, there will be 2 women for every 1 man completing a 4-year US college degree. In other words, men have drastically fallen behind. And, we're the most free, we're the most liberated, we're the most educated, we have employment, and yet we are all the most dissatisfied and unhappy. And in your work, do you notice a divide between how men and women are processing their pain and trauma? And what are some of the key differences do you think there is?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a big question. So just the way that we think about the way that we were conditioned, like when we were children, just our society, what we perceive as women, especially the older generations. So kind of the woman was perceived as the one to like, stay at home and serve the man, and the man would, go home, would go to work and, provide for the family. And you think about how like all of these constructs are just conditioned into us. It's just all almost just like a brainwashing of some sort. So I think that when I touched on that pendulum earlier, we see the pendulum swinging when there's so much like trauma with the objectification and the misogyny, and then with men that they were told they need to be, cold and hard and rigid and cut off from their emotions and suppressing all their stuff. And that was told to be like powerful, or like masculine. And so when you are just trying to address things from the surface, the pendulum's going to swing to the other side. So when women were so suppressed for so long, then they're going to, there was that, feminist wave where you can have a feminist and be really angry and hate men, but you can also have a feminist that is just standing up for equality. So what's important to note is the energy behind what we're saying and what you're talking about, because it's easy to group people into to group people into like, this is what they believe and this is what they do, and men and women, but everybody has a different why, I guess, a different reason, a different thing that's kind of driving them. And so,
Yeah.
sorry, 1 second, I'm just gonna put this in.
You're right.
So when you talk about like the different genders and different roles, for me, what I see is that men have essentially been told to just, be hard, be strong, don't feel anything. And then that also, when you have so much unprocessed trauma, can lead to a lot of the things that we're seeing right now, a lot of the isolation and the dysfunction. And then with women, it's almost like that pendulum swinging to the other side. And so the solution is really, because we want to point fingers to everybody. You see everybody blaming and pointing fingers and, it's their fault or it's this world. But I mean, if we all just took a look at like, okay, how am I showing up? Am I showing up in judgment right now? Am I showing up in hatred? Am I showing up in misogyny? Because we've all been conditioned that way, right? Am I showing up in superiority? Taking a look at what's really going on and then healing, it all starts with, us. It starts at the individual level. And then as we heal ourselves, we can impact other people. Because if we're trying to help other people from our own wounded state, we're just going to be projecting more wounding into the world. So it's
Yeah.
it's a big issue. But yeah.
Do you think that the way things are running right now, with the war on masculinity, women combative towards men, we're better together than we are apart. We're a duel. And that's how we raise a healthy, happy society.
Mhm.
Do you think that it's an indoctrination? Do you think that, and I spoke about this on another podcast. My guest said that the forces above are trying to break down the family nucleus. Do you
Mm.
think it's a lot bigger than we can, imagine?
When you're looking at these dynamics, um, there's always, there's something bigger at play for sure. The whole gender war, it's if we just looked at the surface level, we could list off, okay, women hate men because of this, and vice versa, but it's just been created to create more divisiveness and division. And so back to my like original point of, we want to just point fingers and we want to get mad and angry at somebody, but that's just because we can't handle what we're feeling, and we've never
Yeah.
been learned how to process and feel what we're feeling, and heal that part of us, because then we wouldn't be coming from this hatred and this blaming and this all this that just feeds into more of it, right? So it
Yeah.
is, there definitely is a lot deeper things there. And so with the work that I do, and when it comes to healing, every single aspect of every single situation can be seen from a deeper perspective. But we are so conditioned to just stay on the surface and just, somebody does something and then we think it's the end of the world, or, we just get lost in like the physical. We get lost and we don't even want to like take a step back, observe, and realize what's really happening on a deeper level.
Yeah.
In the United States, men are 80% of the successful suicides. And pretty much if you look anywhere around the world, men are 3 to 4 times more likely to take their own lives compared to women.
Mhm.
Um, Many men, especially too today, Maddy, have difficulty expressing their feelings because they also feel undervalued. They don't feel wanted. It's just shut up, have a cup of cement and harden up. Just get on with it. You'll be right. Boys
Mhm.
don't cry, men don't cry. And no wonder many men just can't take it anymore.
Yeah.
And I think women too now are starting to um, understand a little bit more. Unfortunately, there are those toxic women that shame men for being vulnerable. Um, and I think too, a woman's superpower is to support her man, and a perfect example for this, like men will do some heroic things to support the woman that they love, and that's what I think men are missing is they want that support. They want that deep emotional connection from a woman. A tragic incident happened in your country back in 2012. A gunman entered a cinema and just started opening rounds. 4 of the boyfriends jumped in front of the girlfriends to protect them, and they literally died to protect their girlfriends. And I mean, this is a perfect example of masculinity and what men want to do.
Mhm.
They're programmed and biologically to want to protect, to provide, and yet I feel like a lot of men are really missing that. But what do you think is driving this? There's still more work to be done, but what are some of the things that you've learned about men and women and how they process emotions?
Yeah. So specifically to what you're talking about, um, because there has been a wave of shaming men for being men, that being too hard, because too s- intense or whatever, shaming men for being that way. So then I feel like they've learned to, okay, it's not safe for me to express or be what I innately am, which is, more of that masculine. And so then they kind of suppress that. And there's a lot of different dynamics at play, but you see where that pendulum comes in of, okay, now I can't express and be what I feel like I am innately am. And so we have women, and I don't want to say all, because it's hard. Every individual's different, but there's definitely patterns. When we don't address the root, it's going to come off as blaming and shaming the other person or the other
Yeah.
gender, right? It's going to just kind of go back and forth. And it's like when you take your pain, you want to project it onto other people when you are not taking responsibility for it. So, men do that, women do that, and it comes down to taking responsibility. So that man, that when they're getting shamed for showing up the way that they feel like they need to show up, it's taking responsibility, because there could be a part of them that is not showing up the right way. Maybe that they're being too, you know, they're maybe causing harm in some way. So it's taking the responsibility. Let me reflect. Let me see. Is there a part of me that is not showing up the way I should? And then if you reflect, you obviously go in, heal that part of you. But if you reflect, I'm showing up okay. I'm doing what I need to do. Then it's healing the part of you that is causing this shame from another person to make you want to cower, to make you want to, become
Yeah.
small, right? So it really is a lot about self-reflection, and we want to be like, make it about the other person. We're like, okay, you need to change that, and you shouldn't talk to me that way, or they shouldn't be like this. It's like when you're saying these shouldn'ts, it's like, okay, it's about what does it bring up within you, taking that responsibility. Okay, I'm only in charge of myself. I can only control myself. If I need to set a boundary, I can. If I need to remove myself from a situation, I can. But noticing, am I playing into this at all? Is there any part of myself that is adding to this judgment, this hatred, this separation? Healing that part of you, and then also noticing, okay, where do I maybe need to set a boundary? We want to make these about women and men, but really we're all just like humans, right? We all have our own wounding. We have, genders have more similar wounding because we've been through similar things, but it's all, all the same process of looking deeper.
Yeah.
I've spoken about this many times, Maddy. There's a lot of talk online where men will say, never open up to your romantic partner, never open up to your woman, don't even shed a tear because she'll lose attraction for you, she'll leave you, she might weaponize it and use it against you in a future argument. And I heard Chris Williamson speak about this. He said men have to earn the right to express their emotions. Example might be Brad Pitt. If you look at him, right, all the girls loved him when he was in Legends of the Fall and Interview with the Vampire. He was the pinnacle of the pretty boy. But the reason why he can cry on camera is because he's Brad Pitt. He's built his value up. He's earned some manly points. And I think this sucks because there are many people that I think are really struggling, not just men but also women. And I think women are doing a better job. They're learning how to understand men and how they can better create a safe space, because that's what a man really worries about. He worries about opening up to his partner, and I'm talking about some really serious things, like maybe there's been a death in the family, he's on the brink of a nervous breakdown, and he sheds a tear, and that woman weaponizes it and uses it against him in a future argument. And women only get one shot with a man's vulnerability. One. If you weaponize it and use it against him later on in an argument, he will never, ever open up to you again. Men are very sensitive. But how can women create a safe space for men to open up, knowing that they can do that, without overreacting? Because also, like, I think it's not like completely bawling, and it just depends on the circumstances. Like, I'm not talking about a man crying because he had his PlayStation turned off, something silly like that. It's something serious and he sheds a tear. How can a woman create a safe space for that man?
Yeah, so there definitely has to be safety on both sides. So um either gender feeling like they are in a good space to share, because you don't want to be vulnerable if you feel like you're going to be attacked, if you're going to be, shut down or made fun of or judged, because especially with men, that's what's happened their entire lives. And so it's just re-traumatizing, being able to open up and um, have the other partner really be in presence and be in honoring of what that person's going through. But really, it takes healing themselves. So
Mm.
if someone's going to be opening up, the other person has to see, okay, wow, I'm becoming defensive. I am, all these things. I need to be able to heal those parts of myself so I can show up as a better partner. And, and it's hard to generalize this situation, because it depends on if the man is truly being open and vulnerable, that's beautiful. I've also seen this with men and women where they use mostly, I mean, I see this mostly with women where they use emotions. It's like you're blaming the other person. It's like, you're making me feel this way and it's
Yeah.
your fault. And so in that sense, you are just projecting your own hurt. You're not taking the responsibility to heal yourself and show up in the partnership as the best version of you. You're just making everything about the other partner. So it takes both partners. It takes the person sharing, knowing that they're not coming from projection, knowing that they're coming from an open and vulnerable space, but the other partner also has to be in a create a space and take responsibility for themselves and notice, okay, am I about to judge them or am I about to get defensive, and why? Okay, I
Mm.
feel like I'm going to be getting attacked, or I feel like, there's so many layers to whatever they're feeling. But yeah, it just takes looking deeper. And when we talk about work in relationships, we when my teacher has this process that she does with people who are in arguments, right? So when you are getting triggered and you're arguing with your partner, it's just pausing. You literally just pause, take a breath, and feel what's coming up. Make it just kind of take some time from them. Okay,
Yeah.
it's not you're making me feel this way. It's okay, you did this and this is what I'm experiencing because of it. It made me feel like this. I need to go process. I need to go feel this. I need to go show up for myself in this moment, and I'm going to come back to this discussion a more solid, grounded version of myself. And the other person has to be able to do the same thing. They can't be like, yeah, you're the one that needs to do this. Like, it takes two. And if only one person is dedicated to their own growth, then that relationship will likely fizzle out because someone will grow out of it. But if you
Yeah.
keep getting sucked into the same dynamics over and over again and allowing that person to keep you there, allowing yourself to keep you there, because when they show up this way, you're judging them. And when you're judging them, you are functioning at that same frequency as they are. Judgment keeps you trapped. Contempt and resentment keep you trapped. So if
Mm.
you are to heal, elevate yourself, you sometimes you start to grow, and the other person, you kind of start to fade away. But sometimes they realize, okay, wow, they mean business. They are actually not falling into the same tricks that I normally do, the manipulation. So I need to change. I need to do something. I need to meet them up there. And so you see sometimes it sparks some serious change in the other person, but it really just
Yeah.
starts with you. It's like looking at yourself, like, how am I showing up? Um, and taking your journey into your own hands and not trying to control the other person. And if you need, like, at some point you realize, okay, I don't want to be with a partner who's not going to support me in that way. I don't want to be with
Yeah.
somebody who's going to judge me and make me feel like this. When I've done my own work and healing, it's like, why would you want to be with somebody like that? So a lot of that is clouded, like your judgment's clouded when you're so sucked in it and you're, in the arguments and you're pointing fingers and you're functioning at that same level. And so it's not until you rise out of it that you can see clearly. Because we've all been in
Mm.
those, like, you know, high school relationships or toxic relationships where you're just like kind of stuck in it. And then, like, 10 years later, you're like, wow, like, how was I ever with somebody like that? You know, how was I ever, like, why did I ever put up with that? Because you're sucked in it, and it takes growing out of it to see how shitty it is sometimes.
Yeah.
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 And that's just the men's side, Maddy, because men really worry if they do open up to their partner, especially their romantic partner, and who do men want to turn to the most in a time of a crisis is going to be their romantic partner. They do worry about that. But another thing as well, too, that men struggle with is how to support a woman, especially if she's venting, because a lot of the time men just want to fix things. A woman will tell them their problems, and straight away, logically, men will think, okay, I can fix this, But women, I think they're a little bit different in the sense they just want you to listen. But this is the struggle that I think a lot of men have. So if a woman's going through some sort of emotional, a mixed emotions about work-related issues, or it's a family problem, whatever it is, how can the man support the woman, especially when she's venting? Because this is challenging for a man.
Yeah. Yeah. Listening, yeah, is huge. And sometimes it can be draining. If you're with somebody who's just constantly negative and just venting all the time, and just being a downer and complaining. And so at some point, it depends, every situation's different, but feeling into the energy of where they're coming from. And if it's at some point, like, yeah, listening and being present, but at some point, if they are sucking the energy out of you, then you need to make a set of boundaries. Like, I'd love to hear and support you right now. Um, but and I feel like you're being like, it's just draining me because you're getting lost in this negativity, and it's like this every single day. Or what are you gonna do about it to change the situation? Challenging them. So it's not just about listening, but maybe challenging them. Okay, what is this, bringing up? How are you going to change? How are things going to get better, instead of just allowing the cycles of, venting to go on for weeks and months?
Yeah.
And we also hear women losing touch of their femininity, um, because I think it's the dance, isn't it? It's the masculine and the feminine energy coming together. You know, as I said, men and women are better together than we are apart. And women enter the workforce, which is amazing. It's fantastic. But there's a lot of masculine characteristics that I think women might develop, which especially if they go down the road of entrepreneurship or something like that. But how can women reconnect with their femininity? What's some of the things that you think would be beneficial for women listening to this?
Yeah. So feminine energy is very nurturing, very loving, very um calming, right? So it's not about trying to be that for other people when you're trying to cultivate that within yourself. It's how can I just be and sit with myself and show that nurturing, loving energy to myself. Whether it's, anxiety you're experiencing, or stress, or you have something come up in work, or maybe a challenging relationship issue. How can I kind of hold myself in this and show myself love through this? And as you are able to do that for yourself more, you can kind of tap into that more and be able to share that with other people. But oftentimes we overexert ourselves, and we're trying to do all these things for everybody else and be everything for everybody else. But it starts with really cultivating that for yourself.
Yes. Yeah.
Do you believe too, Maddie, the rise in mental health issues is a symptom of deeper spiritual disconnection or societal programming?
Mm-hmm. Um, so there's this quote that goes, psychopathology is the definition of, the definition of, like, the Latin root is um, this expression of the suffering of the soul. So when you have mental illness, it is just your soul expressing that it's expressing that you're disconnected from your soul. So these are all just symptoms. So if we are fully aligned with our soul, which is, that spiritual component, we would not suffer a single day. And it doesn't mean that we wouldn't ever experiencing anything negative, right? We're human, we're going to experience pain, but we allow it, we see it, we don't judge it, we don't push it away, we see it, we allow it to flow through, and so it doesn't get stored, and so it doesn't continue to wreak havoc in our lives. But when we are living out of alignment and when we have wounds that we have not healed, it's just our soul that's trying to show us, like, hey, this needs healing. Hey, maybe you should, make this decision, or don't do that. Or, hey, why are, here's this depression. Why are you depressed? Oh, because your life is not a reflection of your inner, like, being. And so when we see all these mental health crises, is because we're all so disconnected from the truth of who we are. That's just an expression of that. So what is a reflection of the disconnection is our society, and it's all a reflection of what we're experiencing inside. So the more we heal internally, the more that our external life is going to be a reflection of that.
Yeah. And I think therapy is amazing, Maddy. I'm all for therapy, but there's some differences in how men and women process emotions, and especially how therapy works. And it's my belief too, Maddy, that I think male depression gets treated like female depression, when all men want to do is feel capable and powerful. They want to feel needed. They want appreciation. And I think women tend to bond face to face. Men tend to bond shoulder to shoulder, which is why I think men need a brotherhood. But women have a fantastic support network. But I think it's a lot better. But do you think that there is some certain problems with therapy and how it works for women in some ways, works for men in other ways? Because I think therapy, it may not work generally. Talk therapy may not work as well for a man than it would for a woman. Do you think there is a little bit of that difference?
Men have a harder time opening up and being vulnerable and talking about what they're really feeling, because of all the conditioning of, all the backlash they'd get from opening up. And so that's what is nice about the breath work that I do, is it helps people get out of their mind. When guys are in therapy, a lot of times it's probably they're really in their mind. They're not in their heart. They're really defensive, protective. There's almost like 3 extra layers in between them and, trying to even feel what it feels like to connect to themselves. So with the breath work that I do, it's a really awesome tool, because when you do this deep breathing, it's almost like I don't know if you've heard of like holotropic breath work.
No, what's that?
It's a deep breathing technique that over oxygenates your blood, and it helps shut down your prefrontal cortex by how alkaline the blood is and how much acidity is in it. So when you are able to kind of shut down your prefrontal cortex, when you don't have that rational mind or that protective mechanism coming in, preventing you from going deeper, you can truly feel into, okay, what does it feel like to connect to myself? And usually in my classes and my sessions, you feel a lot of emotions, because you get out of your own way and you're like, wow, like there's so much in there. And it's really helpful for especially guys, because their minds get in their way women too, but guys specifically. And so it's nice to have a tool that helps them get there, because just on their own, it's pretty hard, because we've just, the way that we've been conditioned. So men, I see this in my own practice and with my classes, that women, it's so much easier for them to get into that space of connecting to themselves and feeling what's underneath the surface, feeling into their subconscious, because they're more intuitive. And men are able to, with the breath work, feel that so much more than just having like talk therapy.
Yeah. Talk to me about your breathwork programs, Maddy. So what's some of the breathing techniques that you teach? Do you teach box breathing? certain breathing techniques for performance in sport, how to regulate anxiety. What are some of the breathing techniques that you teach?
So I don't teach any of those. I don't teach techniques, even though all of those breathing techniques are amazing, and especially when you're if you're like overwhelmed or you're trying to calm your nervous system, those are incredible. And there's more of like the kind of yoga, like meditative breathing
Mm.
styles. I do a very active breathing style, so it's not relaxing. It pushes you into an altered state of consciousness. So when we're in the world, when we're really in our head, we are in this state, a certain state of consciousness. When we're able to get out of our head, almost like hypnosis, right? When you are completely out of your body in a sense, you're out of your mind and you're almost in an altered state of consciousness. So the breath that I do, it puts you there because of the different acidity levels in your blood, essentially. And so that's it's a session. So it's not like
Right.
I can drop in and do this for 5 minutes in the middle of my day. You definitely have to have like an hour and a half a space to do. It's like 30 to 40 minutes. It's prolonged, deep breathing that I do with my classes and individually. And it allows you to connect with that deeper part of you. And some people have experienced visions. Some people have experienced messages from their soul, from this
Mm.
deeper version of them. A lot of times you'll feel emotions that have been stored so far underneath, but your soul's like, hey, this is here. You need to feel this so you can live in more alignment with me. Um, and so it's really for self-exploration and healing is the type of breath work that I do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How do you tap into that? Like what's the breathing? Is there a count for it? Like how do you tap into it?
Yeah. So the count that I do, it's a two-part inhale, and I usually do through the nose because you're able to control your experience a little bit more than if you're breathing through the mouth. And so you fill up your chest, and then you fill up your belly, and then you fill up your chest, and then you breathe all the way out. But what's different than breathing normally is that you breathe super deeply. So it's like as big as you can, and then breathe out as much as you can. And you don't stop at the top or the bottom. So it's like a circular pattern of breathing.
Mm.
And if you were to even try this for 5 minutes, where you fill up your belly, fill up your chest, and then breathe all the way out, and then keep doing it. So don't stop. Keep doing it for 5 minutes. You'll start to feel lightheaded. You'll start to feel tingly.
Mm.
And you'll start to feel the effects of what it's physiologically doing to your body. And it is pretty uncomfortable. It's like, it doesn't feel super good. But we do this for about 30, 40 minutes, and I play music, and the music helps kind of elicit some of those deeper parts of you as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, just even if you just type up a like holotropic breathing, like on YouTube, you could try it on YouTube. It's really super interesting.
Yeah.
You just kind of have to get through that first like 15 minutes because then you start to kind of get into a rhythm. Um, and then I guide people. I give them verbal cues to explore certain things that are deep in their subconscious to allow them to see and to feel and to heal those parts of them. So it's really powerful stuff, but it's also very vulnerable. Um, and so it takes somebody who's really ready, like willing to want to make changes in their life and not just want like a quick fix or, an easy out.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's fascinating. Because we we're also, I think, we've forgotten how to breathe. I think we tend to be a lot more mouth breathers. There's a lot more mouth breathing. I mean, I breathe through my mouth because my nose, I need to, get an operation because I've broken it so many
Oh
times.
no.
But I don't breathe correctly. But a lot of people have forgotten how to breathe.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. But do you also incorporate the meditation, the mindfulness into your practices? Do you incorporate because if I remember correctly, it's longer exhales if you want to calm down, and shorter inhales, and then it's the reverse if you want more of like a power up, a pick me up, like like a big boost in performance in a sport or something like that.
Yeah. So yeah, you're just kind of talking about like conscious breathing, being conscious of like the patterns that you're breathing, and then also in my practice we do like a meditation at the end. But it is a really good practice to even just like pay attention to, okay, am I breathing really shallow right now? Am I taking deeper breaths? Am I using my full capacity? Am I experiencing something really kind of overwhelming? Do I need to slow down my breath, kind of like you were saying, to just like calm myself down? So there's a lot of really good tools and different breathing techniques that help you do that. And then, incorporating mindfulness. I wouldn't say, I guess in my practice, it is mindfulness in a sense of like really feeling into what is brought up within you, what's coming up.
Yeah.
And then also having that time it kind of puts you into like such a deep meditation. Some people don't even feel like they're in their bodies anymore. So it can be pretty wild for sure.
Yeah. And I could imagine too, Maddy, you would have seen some pretty remarkable occurrences. Maybe women have cried in your session.
Yeah.
I'm
It,
sure things like that have happened.
there's been so many instances of just like mind-blowing, profound realizations. I've had men cry, women cry. I've had people connect with their ancestors. I've had people connect with their dead relatives. I've had just recently, 2 nights ago, I had a class, and this guy came up to me. It was his second class, and he said that he's been sober for 20 years and he's done all the therapy in the world and tried all the different things. And he's like, tonight, this moment was the first time that I've ever felt what it's felt like to love myself. And it was just so beautiful, because it definitely it takes being open and being vulnerable, because you can go through a class or go through a breathwork session and be completely closed off and not get anything from it because you're not willing to go there. So there is a component of like, yeah, this is a tool that helps and it can help you push you to get there, but you have to be willing to open to it for sure.
Yeah.
When you talk about the conscious mind and the subconscious mind, very easy, people can tap in consciously, but how can someone tap into their subconscious mind?
Yeah. So it's observing yourself. So there's so much that we are not aware of that if we were to just kind of focus on what we can do consciously, and I know there's this, they talk about how the subconscious makes 75 or 95% of our life, and the conscious mind, conscious decisions is 5%. So our
Yeah, I've heard
subconscious
of that. Yeah.
yeah, where it's like the subconscious is basically everything we've been programmed to do. When something happens to us, we think this, we say this, we react this way, we shut down, we run away. All of that is subconscious. All of that is programs and ways that we have learned to adapt to our own circumstances. So we are not aware of it if we're not becoming conscious of our thoughts, decisions, actions, what's triggered within us. So through our coaching program, we take it step by step. Okay, when are you triggered? What thoughts come up? In order to make the subconscious conscious, you need to grow your awareness. That is like key. So you have to grow your awareness. Okay, not just I'm unconsciously living through my life and allowing everything to control me and what I do and say. It's wow, this is what I'm thinking right now. This is what I'm feeling right now. Let me explore. Let me go deeper in this. And then in doing so, you make the subconscious more conscious, if that makes sense.
Yeah. There's, if I remember correctly, Maddy, there's a Hawaiian technique. I forget, is it called Ho'oponopono? I can't remember how you pronounce it, but it's saying positive affirmations daily, and that sort of helps with reprogramming the subconscious mind. You might say, I love myself, I appreciate myself, I am deserving, I embrace my imperfections. It's giving that self-love, because as we were talking about earlier, we are our own worst critic. But have you heard of this technique before?
Yeah, I've definitely heard of affirmations, and it's kind of a big trend right now.
Mm.
The tricky thing about that is that if you are telling yourself that you love yourself, but energetically you definitely don't love yourself because of, all the conditioning and what you've learned to adapt and what you've learned about yourself throughout your whole life. If you look in the mirror and you say, I love you, it's not authentic. It's not true. What do you feel when you tell yourself, I love you? Does it feel weird? Does it feel awkward? Does it trigger something within you? Because if it was as easy as telling ourselves that we just love ourselves, everybody would be healed and everybody would love ourselves, and we wouldn't have any self-worth issues or self-doubt. It is so much more than that. And so those affirmations can be really helpful if energetically you do love yourself, if you truly have healed all the parts of you that say otherwise, all the parts of you that are stuck in shame and guilt and resentment and self-deprecation. It takes healing the lower frequencies to become more of the truth of who you are, which is love. But we can't just bypass all of the unprocessed pain and the hatred that we have for ourselves by just telling ourselves we love ourselves. But once you've done the work, once you've transformed, then those affirmations can be super helpful because it just magnifies what you already are. But if you
Yeah.
are saying them when it's not true, you are just anchoring in the truth that you hate yourself, that you don't think that you're worth anything, when you're just trying to trick yourself into thinking that you are.
Yeah.
Do you know the famous entrepreneur Alex Hormozy, Maddy?
No, I haven't heard of him.
Yeah, so he has a saying, he has a quote. I can't remember it at the top of my head, but it's something along the lines of you need like confidence from your accomplishments. So, in other words, you need to give yourself a stack of undeniable proof to say who you are. And I think this can kind of be like talking about self-love and what it means to do the daily habits, because I think confidence is from your accomplishments. You can't just, I mean, you could probably give yourself that self-talk, whether it be a speech, you're talking in front of 500 people, I'm going to smash this, I'm going to do this, I'm going to talk in front of these people and I'm going to be good. But it's daily habits, it's confidence with your accomplishments and what you've achieved, giving yourself that stack of undeniable proof to say that you are who you really are. But how do people practice self-love?
Yeah, self-love is showing up for you. It is whenever you're feeling something scary or something painful or something uncomfortable, it's dropping into your heart and opening and feeling it. And that's how you show up for you in love. And when we think about loving ourselves, it's such a abstract concept. We like, okay, how do you even love yourself? And it's easy to imagine this as like, what would you do for a child? If a child was feeling something painful and excruciating, you wouldn't ignore them. And oftentimes we ignore ourselves, or we don't push them away. And oftentimes we push ourselves away and we push the pain away. Um, we wouldn't convince this child just to be happy, and that's what we do to ourselves all the time. I just need to be happy. Like,
Mm.
it's not love if you're just pushing that feeling away. Love is being a presence for this child. Love is maybe sitting next to them, maybe holding their hand and creating a space for them to feel. And when we talked about, having a safe space earlier, right? What does that look like? That looks like being in the presence of someone who is love, is just a grounded presence, not judging you, not needing you to change, not needing you to be anything different. And so when we can see that for ourselves, showing up that way for a child that's going through something, that's
Yeah.
exactly what we need to do for ourselves. Is we feel something and we literally don't even know how to do this. We've never been able to do this our whole lives. So it's awkward and it's weird. It's like, why am I just sitting with myself right now? Our mind is going to come in and sabotage the whole thing by, okay, this is stupid. I'm bored. This is dumb. But how often when you were a child did you show up to somebody and they made you feel like you were stupid? How often did they make you feel like you were dumb or that you were too much? And how do you end up doing that to yourself by the way that you talk to yourself, by the way that you treat yourself? It's all just a projection of how we were taught as we were kids, and we were never taught how to truly show up and be there for ourselves. And so it's dissolving and deconditioning ourselves from everything that we have learned and becoming the love for ourselves that we need.
Yeah.
And does self-love, obviously, we were talking about with regards to mental health and habits and exercise, and they're just support that support you, but it really comes down to a result of practicing the inner work. Is that correct?
Absolutely, yeah. So when and this is kind of like the big difference between like the coaching that we do and then like maybe your generic like life coach. A life
Yep.
coach might look at the different aspects of your physical life, and they might see, okay, your job, your relationship, your health, your physical health, all of these things. And how can we change these things to make you happier? How can we change your physical? Maybe you need a new job. Maybe you need to set boundaries in your relationship. Maybe you need to start eating healthy. Maybe you need to start working out, a certain amount of times a day. How do we fix things on a physical level? And then maybe that'll change things internally. But a lot of times we see people go through those changes of, okay, I've done all the physical changes. Why don't I feel happy? Or
Yep.
maybe I have such a hard time even making changes physically in the physical. It's because they're not addressing things internally. And when you don't address things internally, your internal dis-ease or the product of your wounds and those frequencies that are stored within you are going to reflect your external life. So if you have super low self-worth and you compensate that for eating a lot and you gain a lot of weight, you're going to have such a hard time losing weight because there's a part of you that just hates yourself. So instead of just eating healthy, address that energy. When you
Yep.
address the energy of low self-worth, when you heal that part of you, then it's not such a battle. It's not such a fight to eat the vegetables or not eat the fast food. It becomes a natural part of what you want to do and what you want to choose because that's who you are, because you've become that love. And when you truly love yourself, you want to take care of yourself. You want to make the right
Yeah.
decisions. But when you just try to adjust things on the outside, it's really challenging and oftentimes it doesn't work.
Maddy, how does someone break from addiction, whether it be an alcoholic, a drug addict, addicted to social media, addicted to sugar? How does someone break through addiction?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I feel like the old way of approaching this would be, okay, just stop doing it, right? Just stop drinking alcohol or just, stop going on your phone. And it's so funny because my husband, he was kind of addicted to social media for a while.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he's like, okay, I'm just going to delete the apps. If I just delete the apps, I'm not going to go on social media. So he's trying to, control the outside. So he deletes all of his social media apps. And then, like a few days later, I run into him. He's on the couch on his phone and he's scrolling through LinkedIn. He's just sitting there, just scrolling through, which is like a professional, like, it's like a professional Facebook.
For work and
Yeah, for people working. And like, so, you're going to end up finding another vice, essentially, if you don't truly understand and feel and heal what's underneath. And so, when we talk about healing addictions, when you are about to go to the fridge and grab the food or grab the alcohol, pausing, it takes willingness and dedication. It's not going to happen overnight. Pausing and feeling why you are doing this.
Yep.
What are you trying to avoid? Because we're all just trying to avoid something when we're addicted to something. We're avoiding feeling, and that's what we've been conditioned to do. So if you were truly fully content, fully happy, fully at peace, you would not need anything. You would not need to grab the alcohol. You would not need to grab your phone. You would not need to, feed into this addiction. But usually there's like a discomfort and like a irritation or a They could start with this mild, like, I just need this. And then you start to look deeper. Okay, why do I need this? What am I feeling? Opening to it. Okay, there's so much more, there's deeper stuff here. And when you heal those parts of you, you naturally become more peaceful, more joyful, more content with life. And you evolve out of all of these habits that you have and all of these addictions. So it takes addressing that root, like growing the awareness, seeing how you're feeling, and addressing things from that lower, that deeper place.
Yeah.
One of the most alarming and tragic statistics I've come to learn, Maddy, is there was a study by Morgan Stanley that forecasts 45% of prime working age women between the ages of 25 and 44 will be single and childless by the year 2030. In fact, they're so certain of this, they did this research on Morgan Stanley, so that their investors would know what to invest in, like boxed wine and cat toys, things that
I
single
think I've
women
heard
would
about
do.
this. Yeah.
Yeah, but that's just for women, right? For men, much worse, much worse. Non-partnered childless men in society tends to be the most unstable. Men who don't have a reason to behave will commit violent crimes, have a lack of purpose, and be unable to contribute meaningfully to society. Um, and we spoke about feminism just before, and I think first wave and second wave feminism, amazing. For liberation and women empowerment, getting women into the workforce. But you were talking about the pendulum; it's just swung a little bit too far to the left. But in your view, do you think feminism has impacted both liberation and the disorientation of women in today's world?
Um, yeah, I mean, it depends on what energy they're coming from. Like I mentioned earlier, right? Because you could have the feminist culture of just hating men and feeling like, yeah, everybody's out to get them. But what's deeper is victim consciousness. And that is something that we all have experienced to some extent. And when you have such divisive groups, you feel like, oh, everybody's out to get me, and the world's against me, and everything's negative, and everything's gonna go wrong. And you can feel on a deeper level that's just somebody in victim consciousness. And
Yep.
so you have those types of feminists, and it could be any type of group. But you also have the feminists that are just fighting for equality, fighting for just this, for everybody to be to not be so divisive, and fighting for there to be like less superiority and all those things. So it really depends on where people are coming from, and then obviously taking the responsibility and doing what you need to do to heal yourself.
Yeah. So you think the core lesson of all this is people need to be willing to do the healing. They need to, because we're not taught this in school. We don't learn this stuff until we're later on in life. I didn't learn about attachment styles and relationship dynamics, intersexual dynamics, how men and women process emotions. I'm discovering more and more about myself. And this is me after 38 years. I'm still learning more and more about this stuff. But do you think there needs to be more education in school about this sort of thing?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's where, I mean, just education's missing in general. Like adults need to know. Children, I think if you start them young, they'll know how to be able to process and feel their pain and be there for themselves, so then they won't be so traumatized, since they'll have the tools to be able to move through life more confidently than feel like they're constantly having to run away, or that they're powerless to their situation. And so I feel really drawn to the schools and educating children. And so I think that at some point I want to create a program or be able to do education on like a more simple level, but also articulating like the depth of this work to kids, and like how do you connect to your heart, how do you identify and grow your awareness. Okay, what am I feeling right now? Because when we can address it at such a young age, and a lot of these poor kids are going through hell at their houses, and I noticed that in the working in the educational system for a while, of just like how brutal it is for a lot of kids and them, like the trauma and what they experience the day to day. It's like if they knew how to support and be there for themselves, and then they would be much better off later down the road, and even, I mean,
Yeah.
as a kid. So
Yeah.
Did you watch the Netflix show Adolescence, Maddie?
I didn't, but what is it? What is it about?
So it's about a 13 or 14-year-old kid who ends up killing a classmate. And they're obviously talking about young boys being lost. There was a paper, I think, um, about the lost boys and how men are very disconnected, more prone to misogynistic content. Um, because I'm from the 80s. I had my action stars to look up to. I'm a martial artist. So, of course, I looked up to Bruce Lee, Jean-Claude Van Damme. I had all these action stars to look up to. But young boys, I think, too, they're a little bit confused about their place in the world. But it was just a bit of an alarming TV show that just brought to light about the challenges that not only young boys are facing, but also young women. We've forgotten how to connect. I think that, and they did I think it was an 80-year study. They did an 80-year study in Harvard, and they followed these people around later on from early childhood all the way up through to, their older age. And they found, and they asked them questions, are you happy? And, what are some of the things that drive you? A lot of it was purpose, having a sense of meaning and fulfillment. But also they discovered its close connections with people. And the number of friends a man would report having back in the early 90s was 6. Now that number is 0. And men are extremely lonely. Women tend to do a little bit of a better job. They have a better support network. And I think this comes back to, masculinity and, men being shamed and, the pendulum just going a little bit too far that way. But this was quite a little bit of an alarming TV show about young boys being lost and confused. But what do you think society needs to do to fix this? And obviously healing. It's going to come down to, doing the daily practices we need to do. But what can we do as a society?
Yeah. So I feel like it's just kind of a reflection of our own disconnection with ourselves, right? The more disconnected we are with ourselves, our external environment's going to be a reflection of that. Like even, guys can have relationships with other guys, have friends, but it could be, I'm sure you've experienced this, just like surface level, just very like, oh, how's the game? Or, very very surface level where there's not a whole lot of connection there. So even if you have a quote unquote friend, you can only truly connect with somebody to the level that you've connected with yourself. And so when you are able to connect deeper within yourself, you invite that into a relationship with, a friendship or, another guy. And it challenges them to go deeper. And so you a lot of see, like you said, like brotherhood or like men's groups, those are really helpful because it challenges you to go a little bit deeper within yourself and connect with others on that deeper space. And it's always a little bit scary because it's vulnerable, and you might be met with, oh, why are you being so like this, or met with that like toxic masculinity. And so it's always a little bit nerve-wracking, but it takes someone willing to go there, and
Yep.
it's worth the risk, because then you could end up with a deeper friendship, a deeper connection with somebody. And within that, there's so much growth and understanding and experience of who you are in reflection with that other person. And it's pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah, it's fascinating. It's very interesting. And what else are some of the things that you're going to instill in your daughter? Like, what are some of the things that you're going to help or teach her to help her go through emotional periods in her life?
Yeah. It's just that self-reliance. I think that's the biggest thing, because um, if you're just trying to like, oh, I just want her to be more confident, I just want her to love herself, when you're just focusing on just the words but not actually doing the work,
Yep.
um, it's just like you're forcing a square to be a circle. If she really feels like, I feel sometimes like your daughter just feels really down on herself. So how do we create a space for that? How do we There's a difference. There's a difference between loving your pain and creating a space for it and then getting lost in it. So sometimes
Yep.
we hear people like, oh, I just got to feel my pain, but it's like they just like feeling and getting lost in it, just talking about it over and over and over again, and just like almost getting attention from it. That's a different frequency. That is, the victim consciousness. That is the crying. That is the manipulation. So it's not about the act, it is about the energy that you're coming from. So, teaching, children, like you can feel when you start to really get used to the energetics, feeling into your own energy and healing. And you can feel when their emotions are manipulative, when they're coming from a place of um, kind of victimhood or um, just inauthenticity. But you can also feel when they're being authentic and when they're
Yeah.
just needing a space and being vulnerable. And that goes for adults too. And so I would love, I'm trying to incorporate energetics in the way that I parent in like a child's vernacular. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's just knowing that she always has herself and being able to coach her through that process.
If you were, say, the president of the world, I don't know, I'm just making something up, but if you were in charge of the world, what would be one thing that you would instill in school curriculums, in the workforce, and in the family home that you think would be most beneficial for a better society?
Yeah. Honestly, just education.
Yep.
Education on, what's actually going on a deeper level, not getting lost in the theatrics of everything. Um, Instilling a good practices. And if we could completely transform the educational system, it would be, taking those like, incorporating more like physical health and taking the holistic view of what health actually is. Having more nutrition coaching or classes and being able to teach an individual how to function in this world versus like just doing your generic core classes. Okay, how do you function as a human in this world? Because we graduate high school and we have no idea. And so,
Yeah. That's so
looking
true.
holistic, yeah,
Yep.
yeah. So just kind of more of those functional, like finances and like all these things. So, um, just a complete like just restructure of what the educational system is. That's what we need, and
Yeah.
to make people more confident and know and have the skills that they need to function in this life.
Yeah.
And even in the workforce too, Maddie, how many people can you think of, or just people that you've probably met in life that hate their job? They don't feel, they're troubled, they're frustrated, and some of these things can be sort of taught and implemented in workplace as well.
Yeah. It just really comes down to, yeah, more like providing a space and like in the workplace. I feel like there's been a huge move for like wellness. I think that there has been a big shift in
Mm.
like mental health for workers because when
Yep.
they're burnt
Yep.
out, when they're overstressed, they're not going to be functioning for their company as well as they could be if they were feeling more like emotionally sound and mentally well. So that's what is really kind of positive news about the work industry is that they are pushing towards at least some
Yeah.
countries are. So that's another. I mean, if I could have like 20 of me, one of them would be focused on like the business side of things, the
Yeah.
corporate side, like helping people with their mental health through their jobs and becoming more efficient. And there's a part of this the breath work that I do that kind of puts you into flow state. So you experience this when you're completely out of your mind, and maybe when you're fighting, you feel this when you're out of your mind and you're just like hitting the right moves and you're blocking and time doesn't even exist. And you feel this, it's called flow state. And so I have a breathwork practice that puts people into a flow state of like, okay, have the ideas coming in. Everything when you're out of your mind, it just kind of flows out and you don't even have to think about it.
Yeah. I don't know if you know this, Maddie. There was it was in Japan, and they actually let their employees have a nap
Oh, no
because
way.
if they're really burnt out, and they work hard, they work very hard. If they're very burnt out, they'll let them have a 20-minute nap, and they actually take it as a sign of compliment. The workplace takes it as a compliment,
Wow.
meaning that they're working really hard, so therefore they need a little bit of a nap. What do
I
you think
love
of that?
that. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's great. I mean, that's like, I mean, I feel like you see, I know I've seen movies of like, like Google workplaces and like all these like super high, these more advanced companies have like pods, like sleeping pods and like, activities and certain things that kind of help. Like they probably do yoga and like all these things that kind of help them more of like their productivity. I'm all for it. I am
Yeah.
for it for sure.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. And where can people find you, Maddy? You're on the socials, and what can people do if they want to book in with your programs?
Yeah. I'm on Instagram and TikTok at Journey to Om and on
Hmm.
Facebook for Journey to Om Coaching. And you can go to my website if you want to book. You can see all my services. And if you want to book with me, it's www.journeytoom.com. And then the deeper, transformational energetic coaching that we do is through Masters of Self University. So go to mastersofselfuniversity.com to sign up for our university, take annual classes. And if you really are in for a deep dive and want to transform and elevate as fast and as much as possible, that is the true work right there.
Amazing, Maddy.
Maddy, it's been a fantastic conversation. I've enjoyed chatting with you. But yeah, thank you again for your time.
Yeah, thank you so much. It was great.
Thanks, Maddy.